Welcome to the Commissioner's Report. I'm Miles Vance. Last October, Hurricane Milton brought hurricane-force winds and an unprecedented amount of rainfall to Polk County, causing around $22 million in damages. Much of this damage came in the form of flooding, which impacted many residents in low-lying areas, including but not limited to the areas surrounding Lakes Bonny, Parker, Hancock, and Seward. The Board of County Commissioners have been working tirelessly with the Office of Planning and Development to improve land use regulations to help ensure the impact of future storms is lessened. Joining me today to talk about how the county is planning for the future is County Commissioner Mike Scott, who has spent the past 20 years as a civil engineer living in Polk County. Commissioner Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming to the show. And how has the Board of County Commissioners been working with Planning and Development and all these other divisions to sort of take the lessons that we learned from Hurricane Milton and put those into practice?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the most important things we can do is take really good notes, understand what occurred, and then how can we best plan to mitigate those impacts in the future. And so we are currently going through, we are revising some of the stormwater requirements. So when we look at future developments, we will have improved stormwater holding, which would mitigate some of that discharge potential from those. And not only helping that subdivision or that development, whether it's commercial or residential, but those that are downstream. So if you are at a property that's adjacent to, you don't have to worry about that one upstream of you or uphill, so to speak, impacting you. So I think it's going to give a lot more peace of mind, and it is a future planning. It's not going to fix everything that we saw during Milton, but it certainly is a tool that will help us be better in the future.
That's exciting. And so give me an idea of the scale of what's going on here. You know, the divisions that are involved. Obviously, we get to turn on the TV and see the agenda meetings and the boardroom meetings, and we see these things getting passed. But sort of let us know, how many people are working on this and how many divisions are working to get this stuff across the line before hurricane season.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, so the response after Hurricane Milton was far-reaching. When you look at the divisions, really it touched every division. We look at the hurricane recovery on debris pickup. That was a common call that we got at the office. And certainly I understand residents want to get through recovery as soon as possible. No different than during the hurricane, right? Once you're in the hurricane, you're waiting for it to be over. Right. Well, post-hurricane, you really are waiting for the recovery to be over because you just want to be back to your normal life per se. But what we're looking at is how can we then improve it? So although the divisions were active and picking up debris, really roads and drainage, we're looking at the system. So our culverts, our ditches, all the floodways that we have, making sure those are clear. We're looking at aerial between drones and helicopters, understanding where are areas of the county that we can go and improve. And then we are again looking at the requirements that we're going to set forth for improving those development standards. So on the divisions, to answer that, it really was every single department because water, wastewater, solid waste, all those had an integral part in understanding, because you got to consider if a neighborhood is flooded and there's a lift station nearby, that has impacts as well. Maybe it's not flooded, but we can't get to it for maintenance. So if it goes out during a storm. So storm hardening is kind of a common vocabulary word that was had after several hurricanes in South Florida. I really think that some of the stuff we're going through here is how can we better our infrastructure to be more resistant to impacts from future hurricanes.
Right, and you have such a wealth of knowledge and experience with this, having lived in Polk County for such a long time, having been a civil engineer here for 20 years or longer than 20 years. And can you give us an idea of how that experience has sort of informed your decision and your perspective as you now have this new position as County Commissioner?
Yeah, I think for me what it allows is not to go into technical detail with everyone I talk to, but having that background and that experience, I understand where we are. And very much like if you look at the road system, right? As the county grows, you'll hear it often, we want more or need more infrastructure, meaning we have to widen the roads, make it where people can get to and from in an easier fashion. Really, we're seeing the same thing with stormwater. When you have high frequency of intense storms, meaning more rainfall more often, you have to improve your system of roadways for stormwater, which are the ditches, the culverts, the stormwater ponds. So understanding technically what that means, and then recommending and really being able to understand and then not really enforce, but try to just infer, if you will, what those reasonable recommendations are to help us move forward together as a county and not be too restrictive because we're not looking to do that. We just want to help those in the future.
Well, and it's such a valuable thing for the residents to have with someone with your experience, because we obviously we want to back the experts on everything, but then having an expert in the office as well, right at the heart of those decisions, is really something that's going to be a benefit to the residents moving forward. And speaking of the residents, can you sort of give us an idea of what these new regulations are going to look like for the residents, what they're going to see next hurricane season and beyond, what with development, with building code regulations, all these things that we're implementing moving forward? Can you give the residents an idea of what they can expect?
Yeah, so the most, I guess really the most forthcoming that we will have is for closed and stressed basins. So if you're in a bowl and there's not a discharge point for that stormwater, or if you're in a stress basin, meaning you're living or going to live somewhere that has limited outfall capacity, you will see larger stormwater ponds. You're going to see finished floor elevations of new homes elevated. Not stilt homes in Polk County, but you will see them at a higher elevation. And those are all measures that we're looking to take to simply fortify future developments. It doesn't make them totally unlikely to have any storm impacts, right? But it would certainly minimize those impacts. And at the very least case scenario, what we want to have is, if we have another Hurricane Milton, is to have residents safe in their homes. The roadways may be underwater for some period of time, but you're not going to have impacts to your home, to your family, to where you're going to be unsafe during that event. So that's really important for us to see. So it's going to be a change. Sure, there's a cost to some of it when you look at development, but at the same token, what's the cost of recovery when you have impacts like we did from Hurricane Milton? I would argue that those costs are substantially more than providing these additional features that would more so storm harden the future residents.
Yeah, absolutely. Preparation is so important, and we just received, I believe, some money from the federal level with the FEMA grant in order to help offset those costs that occurred from Hurricane Milton. But if that becomes a more common thing, that's something that we'd rather prepare for than have to try to mop up afterwards, as it were. And so could you finish off by giving us sort of a bird's eye view of what residents can expect, what your goals are for the rest of your term as a county commissioner, looking forward for that hurricane preparedness and making sure that we're ready the next time something like Hurricane Milton happens?
Yeah, I think there's a couple elements to look at. We talked a lot about stormwater, and that's really more of both passive and active on how we're controlling or managing stormwater, which is the impact that really many residents felt. But as a Board of County Commissioners, we're looking at more than just the infrastructure. And just this past week, we had $9.2 million allocated for additional first responders, meaning firefighters and EMS. And to me, that's us responding as a BOCC to have the utmost 100% backs of every resident of Polk County. And obviously it's needed throughout the year, but when you look at hurricane response, you still have, there are still emergencies. There's life-saving services that are needed for those. So when we look at what else we can do to bolster the county to be prepared, as they say, don't fail to plan, plan to fail. Kind of look at that. We want to be successful, and we want to plan for success. So I think during the entirety of my term, we'll look for opportunities not only to improve our guidance that we give to have a better future for residents, but also what do we need to support, what departments need more, whether that's money, whether it's resources, anything that we can do, I think, to bolster this to be a better county, then we're doing our job.
Wonderful. And you touched on something there that I think is so important, which is that it's not just the logistical view, but it's also the human view. It's thinking about those first responders who are doing such a heroic job throughout the entirety of the hurricane, and then working afterwards to rebuild as well. And it's easy to forget when you're looking at the numbers and the scale of it all that at the end of the day, there's 800,000 people in Polk County doing their best to help their neighbors out and to work together, and that's something that's really inspiring as well.
Absolutely. I think you said the key word there is people. So no matter if we're talking about residents as people or we're talking about fire and EMS, we are all people. But as a one community, we're all people that can support one another. So I think it's just really important to never really get to where we're splintering each other. We really are building up and gluing each other, and as a whole, we can certainly accomplish more. So I would just encourage those residents, look, when times are tough, dig in deeper, wrap arms with your neighbors, and let's go forth and conquer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Commissioner's Report. We'll see you next time.